Have you ever been scrolling through social media and you just come across a post and think, what is going on?
Wow.
Like, what is this language? It's
Mm.
like I'm seeing these letter combinations and words that I've never seen before, and it feels like I've just walked into like a foreign language convention.
It really does feel like that sometimes.
I mean, have you ever seen IYKK and thought like, what in the
Or
world?
like hits different.
It's different, yeah.
You're like, what does that even
It's like I don't even know where to begin to decipher this.
exactly?
So that's why we're here today, to throw you a lifeline. We're going deep into the world of social media English, specifically for you, so you can understand what is going on.
And it's a really, really rich, deep dive that we're able to do today because of the amazing material that you gave us.
Yeah.
We've got briefing documents,
Little
a
article.
whole article, and they're all centered around this idea of decoding digital dialogue, social media English, the ever-shifting landscape of English trends and vocabulary on social media.
Yeah, and what's so cool about these sources is how thoroughly they like track how English has changed from those like early days of the internet with IRC and all of that,
Oh, yeah.
all the way up to TikTok
All the way to the visual stuff.
and Instagram and all of the video.
It's amazing.
So our mission here is to take all of that really dense information and give you the shortcut to understanding.
Right.
We want to really make sure that you understand why social media English looks and sounds the way that it does, what are some of the key characteristics of it, and then really equip you with the tools so that you can navigate this world without needing a translator.
Become fluent in social media English.
Yeah, exactly. And we wanna make sure you have those aha moments where you're like, oh, that's why.
Right.
That's why that is.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So where did this all begin?
Well, it's interesting because when you look back, it's really those early text-based online communications like IRC, Usenet, those old bulletin board systems, BBS, really set the stage for so much of what we're seeing today.
It's really amazing to think about how something from so long ago
Yeah.
could still be shaping how we communicate today.
I know, and it makes sense when you think about the limitations of these early systems.
Totally.
They were just text,
Yeah.
often dealing with much slower internet speeds.
Right.
So there was this inherent push for efficiency.
Right. And so when we talk about efficiency, what do we mean?
Well, you're typing everything out manually. Every character takes time and effort.
Right. So it's literally like, I want to save myself keystrokes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where we saw the birth of all these acronyms and initialisms,
Right.
like LOL and BRB to save time, and keystrokes.
It was pure practicality.
Pure practicality.
Yeah. And then these early platforms also encouraged a more informal and conversational writing style,
Yes.
like compared to traditional written English.
You weren't writing an essay.
Yeah.
You were just chatting.
Yeah, you're having a conversation.
Exactly.
And it's so interesting to think about like LOL and BRB.
It's still used today.
They're still around.
Yeah.
They're like the cockroaches of the internet.
The linguistic survivors.
You just won't die.
They just keep going.
And I think that push towards informality is one of the biggest things that has just persisted and evolved across different platforms.
It really has.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is how each new platform kind of exerts its own linguistic pressures,
Yeah.
shaping the way we use language online.
So let's get into some specific platforms, because I think that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because the sources really go into how each platform has kind of pushed language in a certain direction.
They do.
So let's take Twitter, for example.
Okay.
That original character limit was a huge constraint. You
Yeah.
had to say everything in like, what, 140 characters?
There's 40 characters.
That's it?
That's it.
It was a linguistic pressure cooker.
It really was. And the material that we looked at, it really emphasizes how that constraint forced extreme brevity.
You had to make every single letter count.
You did.
Yeah.
And that's where we saw even more abbreviations.
Right.
Dropped vowel.
Even more acronym.
Even more acronyms.
And then there's the hashtag.
Oh, the hashtag.
I mean, it started out as something so simple.
Just to organize topics?
Yeah, just a way to categorize.
Right.
But now it's this multifaceted linguistic element.
It's used for discovery, for adding commentary.
It's become part of meme culture.
Part of meme culture.
It's amazing to think about how something so simple has evolved into something so much bigger.
I know, it really is.
And then you have these visually driven platforms like Instagram and TikTok,
Right.
where language really becomes complementary to visuals.
Yeah.
So you have your captions
Right.
and your embedded text working with the pictures and videos.
Working together.
Yeah, it's not just about the text anymore.
It's not just the words on their own.
It's how they interact with what you're seeing.
And I think that the explosion of short form video, particularly TikTok, has really accelerated language evolution.
Huge.
It just sped things up so much.
It's like warp speed language evolution.
Yeah, the sources talk about sound-driven trends.
Right.
Where you have this short audio clip that just goes viral.
And then everyone's making their own version.
And everyone's riffing on it.
Yeah.
And the speed at which memes are created and disseminated on these platforms, it's mind-blowing.
It is.
It's like language is being constantly compressed, remixed, reinvented at an unprecedented rate.
It's really fascinating.
It really is.
So we've talked about the history. We've talked about how different platforms have shaped language.
Right.
What are some of the key characteristics of social media English today?
So one of the most prominent features that emerges is this pervasive informality and brevity.
Right.
It's a direct lineage from those early online interactions.
Right, from the very beginning.
From the very beginning, and the materials he provided. They highlight how relaxed grammar and punctuation, omitting commas, using sentence fragments.
Yeah, nobody's writing with perfect grammar.
Nobody's writing a dissertation.
Right.
It's much closer to spoken conversation than formal written language.
And what's interesting is that even with all of the new slang that's emerging, the sources point out that like the OG acronyms like IDK and abbreviations like PPL are still so prevalent.
They're still the foundation.
They're like the foundation of this very concise style.
Exactly.
And then building on that informality is this idea of visual and multimodal communication.
Right.
Like I said, it's not just about the text anymore. It's about emojis.
Emojis.
Which the sources emphasize are used extensively to convey emotion, tone, sarcasm, replace words, add visual flair.
I mean, think about how often you see just an emoji carrying the weight of a whole sentence.
Totally.
It's like we've developed this whole other language using these little icons.
And you can even combine emojis to create even more nuanced and specific meanings.
It's a whole new world of communication.
It is.
And what's also particularly noteworthy is the huge role of meme culture and virality.
Oh, yeah.
Which the sources really underscore.
Right. Memes are so powerful.
Memes are powerful.
It's shaping how we communicate online.
And the sources define memes as ideas, behaviors, or media formats, often images, videos, or text, that carry specific cultural meanings or jokes.
But they're not just online amusement.
Yeah.
They're engines of linguistic change.
They are.
And the sources explain how memes are constantly generating new slang and catchphrases.
And the speed at which content goes viral means these innovations can spread so quickly.
Oh, it's exponential.
It's exponential.
And they become integrated into online vocabulary almost overnight.
It's like this continuous rapid-fire cycle of linguistic innovation.
It's really amazing to think about.
It is.
And it's not just about the words themselves.
Right.
It's also about how we strategically use language
to signal aspects of our identity.
Yeah.
The sources discuss this concept of performative and identity-focused language.
Yeah, like you're trying to signal something about yourself.
Right. They mention things like virtue signaling.
Right.
Expressing opinions to showcase your values.
Yeah, and how people use jargon specific to certain communities.
To show that they belong.
Exactly.
It's like a digital badge.
It is.
Signifying belonging.
Yeah, and the sources also talk about code switching.
Oh, yeah?
Which I think is something that a lot of people do without even realizing it.
I think so, too.
It's how you adapt your language.
Depending on the platform.
Yeah.
The audience, the context.
Like you're not going to talk the same way on LinkedIn.
You're not.
As you would on TikTok.
No way.
It's a constant adjustment.
It really is.
And another challenge is that online, we don't have those nonverbal cues.
Right.
That we rely on so heavily in face-to-face conversations.
We don't have body language.
We don't have tone of voice.
Facial expressions.
Right. So the sources talk about how we've come up with all these creative strategies to add emphasis online.
We have.
Like using all caps.
Or repeating letters.
Yeah, like so good.
Or punctuation.
Right.
Like exclamation points.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to make text more expressive.
We're trying to inject that emotion into the written word.
Yeah, and all of this contributes to like the birth of new words.
Right, neologisms.
Neologisms, yeah.
Essentially new additions to our vocabulary.
And your sources give some really interesting examples of how this happens.
They do.
They talk about verbing nouns.
Like to adult.
To adult, yeah.
Taking a noun and making it a verb.
Yeah, and then nouning verbs. Or adjectives.
like the ask,
the ask.
turning a verb or adjective into a noun,
And then they're blends.
like hangry,
Hangry. Yeah.
combining two words to create a new one.
And these new words really reflect the unique needs of online communication.
They do. They're very specific to this digital world.
And to really illustrate all of this,
Yeah.
your sources give us a glimpse into the actual lexicon of social media.
The dictionary of the internet.
Yeah, it's like a whole new dictionary.
It is emerged
Alongside traditional English.
alongside traditional English.
It's fascinating.
So we have our acronyms that we talked about, like TBH and NGL.
Right.
But then there's this whole world of slang.
Lit, fire, goat, goat,
Gut,
slay, tea, shade.
shade.
All these words with very specific meanings.
And then there are the internet-specific terms that have become part of our everyday language.
Like meme, viral, hashtag.
So influencer.
Influencer.
And even things like, I can't even,
Right.
or that pilled suffix.
It's a whole new world of words.
It's like a linguistic explosion.
It is.
But all of this dynamism and all of this evolution doesn't come without its challenges.
Right. There are some potential downsides
Yeah, there are some things we need to navigate.
to navigate.
So one of the big ones that the sources highlight is this potential for misinterpretation and ambiguity.
Because we're lacking those nonverbal cues
Yeah.
that we rely on in face-to-face interactions.
Right. It's hard to interpret sarcasm
Or irony.
through text.
It is.
And then the rapid evolution of slang also leads to these generational and cultural gaps.
What's cool for one generation
is completely outdated.
is ancient history for another.
Yeah. And one really important point that the sources bring up is the whole idea of appropriation and sensitivity.
Right.
Because when mainstream culture adopts slang that originated in specific subcultures,
It's problematic.
yeah,
You lose the original context.
you can cause
It's
offense.
an intentional offense.
And then there's the whole issue of slang being so ephemeral and obsolete.
What's trendy today
Is Judy tomorrow?
is Judy tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's like fashion.
It
It
is.
changes so quickly.
And the sources also touch upon the whole debate about the impact of social media English on formal English.
Right. Is this informal online style?
Is it bleeding into
What's it bleeding into?
how we write in other contexts?
That's the question. It's an important question. And finally, the sources remind us that effective communication online requires an understanding of platform-specific norms.
right.
What's okay on Twitter?
Might not be okay on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
Different platforms have different rules.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have
Hopefully you're feeling a little bit more equipped,
a little less lost.
yeah, to navigate this world of social media English.
And you have a better understanding of how it all evolved
Yeah.
and why it looks the way it does.
And what are some of the key takeaways?
Well, I think one of the big ones is this idea of informality,
Right.
brevity,
The visual elements,
the power of memes.
and how we use language to express identity.
It's all about identity.
Yeah, and the sources actually give us some really practical steps we can take to stay up to date
They do.
without getting overwhelmed.
Right.
They emphasize the importance of both active and passive participation.
So both engaging in conversations
Yeah.
and just observing how others communicate.
Yeah, just being a fly on the wall sometimes.
Exactly.
And they also suggest keeping an eye on trendsetters and culture hubs.
Those influential accounts and communities
Yeah, the people who are really driving the trends.
who are on the cutting edge.
Yeah.
And why you should always be critical.
Yeah, of course.
They do mention online resources like Urban Dictionary
And know your mean.
as places where you can find explanations
If you're feeling lost.
for unfamiliar terms.
Yeah. But ultimately, they say that cultivating curiosity and analytical thinking.
It's key.
Yeah.
Don't just try to memorize a list of slang.
Right.
Try to understand the context and
Mm.
infer meaning.
Be a detective.
Be a linguistic detective.
Yeah, and I think most importantly, they say you have to accept that this is a fluid and constantly evolving landscape.
You're not going to know every new term.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
It's okay to be a little bit behind.
It is.
And the sources wrap up by talking about the future of social media English.
Oh, yeah. Where's this all going?
Where is this all headed?
Right? They talk about future trajectories.
Like, how is artificial intelligence going to impact
How we communicate.
how we communicate online?
How about VR and AR?
Yeah.
Virtual reality, augmented reality.
What kind of new linguistic environments might we see?
It's hard to even imagine.
It is. And they also highlight this interplay between globalization and cross-linguistic influence.
Right. How different languages and cultures are interacting,
Yes, shaping
English.
English online. Yeah.
And they emphasize the acceleration of change.
Yeah.
It's not going to slow down anytime soon.
This is only going to get faster.
Faster and more complex.
So the big question for you is,
How do you see these trends impacting your own communication?
yeah, how are you going to adapt?
How are you going to keep up?
It's definitely something to think about.